Alright everybody, hello, this is Taro and welcome to my card review for the Murder at Castle Nathria. This is going to be an interesting set in a few different ways here. Alright, so so the way I look at this set is it's a bunch of delayed value is the best way to describe it. And the best way, and to show it, we should just take a look at two of the key effects here. Alright, so number one are going to be location cards. Now, what are the location cards? I'll pull up the mage one here. So here's the mage example of a location card. So what happens is you play this card and you get an effect here. So this effect you can trigger, and then so let's say you play the mage card on 3. You play the effect, and then turn 4 it's on cooldown, and then turn 5 you can play it again. So I bring this up here for a specific reason. We got the Night Cloak Sanctum here. 3 mana, you get 3 charges of it, freeze a minion, summon a 2/2 Volatile Skeleton. Volatile Skeleton, 2/2, Death Rattle, deal 2 damage to a random enemy, right? Alright, I say this because we can compare this actually to a previous set. If we go back to Alterac Valley, Fractured and Alterac Valley. Now, in comparison, we've got these kinds of location cards, which I think is intentional. I think it's intentional that these are locations in Alterac Valley, and Castle Nathria has locations, and there are things that have like 2 or 3 effects or something like that. So the mage one, Iceblood Tower, pretty bad. But I wanted to compare it to something like, if we go to Druid, for example, Frostwolf Kennels. So, if we look here at Frostwolf Kennels is basically the same thing as the card overall. You pay 3 mana up front. At the end of your turn, you summon a 2/2 Wolf of Stealth. So you're paying 3 mana for what's effectively 6 mana's worth of value. But it's spread out over 3 turns. So how do these work? Pretty well. Frostwolf Kennels, this is like I'm not going to say it's a super premium card in Druid, but if you go here, you look at Druid class cards, whereas you sort here by deck win rate. And Frostwolf Kennels, you can see it's kind of like right here. It's like there's a lot of Druid cards that are a lot worse than this. Like you can see, it's like, where is it? Best in Shell, Seaweed Strike, Pounce, Dire Frostwolf. These are all pretty decent cards, and it's right around that range. So, again, going back to the mage version. So the mage version here. So the mage version, instead of this going over 3 turns, this goes over bare minimum of 5 turns. So, so does the delay really impact it? Yes and no. Why? Okay, in the sense that if you get the value off, like if you can play this on turn 3 and you get to turn 8 and you're able to get the value off, then ultimately you paid 3 mana here to get 3 skeletons and freeze 3 minions, which is pretty good. That's like a great value. So you extend it over a longer period of time. But again, like if you can get to that point where you can get the value off, then I would say it's just as good. It's kind of like dormant cards as well, because the Hunter has another example of this. Kind of like a special Hunter thing are the Wild Seed cards, which I'm going to bring up. Where's Wild Seed card? Okay, this guy. Where the Wild Seed cards are dormant cards that the longer that they are dormant, the stronger that they get. Previous dormant cards, the longer they're dormant, just like if you pay 2 mana and it takes 2 turns to awaken, then you should get like about 4 mana worth of value. If you pay 3 mana for a dormant card, then you should probably get like about 6 mana's worth of value, something like that. So, okay, so the point I'm getting at it here is that the weakness of these cards is if you get rushed down or you can't really deal with it. Like if you seed some mana to do nothing, and then later on, if you seed some mana, you lose tempo. And if you can't gain back that tempo, then it hurts you. However, we've seen with the the good Alterac Valley locations with dormant cards, that generally happens. Like, that generally doesn't happen. So overall, number one, we have the location cards. Okay, getting back to my point. Point here is that the location cards, I feel that they are strong, and I feel that even though it takes a long time to get the value, that the strength is built into them. So some of them you just don't take. A lot of them are going to be really powerful. There's even going to be some where you don't want to trigger it every other turn. Like the mage one, maybe you value that freeze a lot. Maybe you want that threat of a freeze where your opponent does not want to play a big minion. So you hold on to that last charge for like 3 or 4 turns until your opponent plays something where you're like, yeah, I want to make sure this is frozen. And so there's a lot of stuff there where I think it makes it even better than the Alterac Valley ones. All right, the second one, since I've got Hunter here open, is Infuse. So, because this is another version of it. So Infuse. Infuse is for every minion that dies, every friendly minion that dies. If you get to this point, like Infuse 3 means if 3 friendly minions died while this is in your hand, you upgrade the card. So like here, a 2 mana for, again, the Hunter one. Here, 2 mana for 2 2/1s. I mean, that's good. That's probably a 3-star card, give or take. But then, if you can have 3 minions die before it, then you get 2 mana for 2 3/3s, which is well above value. I mean, again, really good. So the infuse effects, they range here. Like this is a moderate buff, and then you get so you get some cards like this where you can play the Frenzied Fangs on turn 2, and the infuse effect is a good buff to that. But then there's also things like Stonebound Gargan. 4 mana 3/5 rush, which is, again, good for 4. But if you infuse it, then it has cleave damage, which makes it insane. So this is the example of a card where you could play it on 4, but you really want to wait for that infuse. So even if you have it on 4, if you need like 1 more infuse on it, you're probably going to hold this in your hand for a little bit. And so this is what I mean kind of like by delayed value, where you have a card and you choose not to play it so that later on, and by not playing it, you probably make a worse active tempo turn this turn, so that later on you can have significantly more value and significantly more tempo from the card. So these are the examples of basically delayed value in cards. So personally, I think I don't like Infuse. I'm just being clear here. I don't like Infuse because it's not something you can play around. Like when you play Infuse, this is just something that happens naturally. Now, yes, better players are going to know when to wait for the Infuse and when to drop it. But like if you're trying to like mind games your opponent, you're trying to figure out what your opponent has. If they've got a bunch of stuff like this, like if your opponent has a deck like this, it's just bad. Like it feels bad when they just have significantly more powerful stuff than you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. There's nothing you can do to play against it. Like, are you just gonna, like, they can just kill their own minions. So I think that's my big problem. If your opponent has the infused cards in their hand and you don't, and they trigger their infused stuff and you don't, there's nothing you can do to stop it. Okay. With that said, how do you play this meta? So, if you have infused cards, so obviously you draft tokens. Like, let's see, do they have current arena cards here? Okay, so like if you're a neutral class, let's go neutral. Neutral. So you draft things that will give you tokens. So let's see, where's some good stuff here? Okay, so for example, Mothership. Like you're obviously going to draft Mothership, but Mothership, that is 3 different cards baked into 1 card. You've got here Reef Walker. Reef Walker, that's 3 different cards baked into 1 card. Reef Walker by itself can trigger an Infuse 3 if you pick it. Like you're going to pick this anyways, but you take this higher. So like so this is an example like if you're playing with this. All right, an example here would be Click Clocker or like Argent Squire versus something like Mekaru. Okay, like here, Twin Fin Fin Twin. This becomes better because you have 2 infused triggers off of it. So cards like these, they go up in value. Something like Divine Shield versus Death Rattle, that goes down a bit. Let me see. Do they have filter? Wait. I'm trying to find. Okay, here's what I mean. So Mekaru, this is a 1 mana with a Death Rattle summon a 1/1. This is 2 infused triggers in 1 card. Something like Mekaru goes up in value. Like in the right deck now, Mekaru probably becomes better than Click Clocker. Because it's a Divine Shield, you still only get 1 infused trigger. If you've got infused cards, like even though Click Clocker has the benefit of being able to buff mechs, you'll take a Mekaru over a Click Clocker because it's easier to trigger the infuse. That's number 1. Now, number 2, because I mentioned delayed value, one of the other things that you need are ways to not die, namely taunts and heals. So I'm trying to think here, like something like Tar Creeper, for example. So you want to be, like if you're a hunter and you play those Wild Seed cards, the only way you're going to die is if someone rushes you down before you can actually get to use them. How do you stop that? You prevent them from rushing you down. You play these cards. They give you extra health. They block your opponent out. They make it so that the game goes longer so that you can get your infused cards off, or you can get your Wild Seed cards off, or you can get your location cards off, and you can take advantage of the game through value. So those are basically my 2 big tools for playing in this meta. My 2 big tips for playing. If you don't have the infused cards, well, you're not going to do well. Like, if you don't have the infused cards, your only really viable strategy is to just try to rush people down. If you don't think, like, if you don't have a good deck for the late game, the only way you're going to win is by rushing people down. Like, that's basically it. And you might not get there, but it's the only real chance you have. All right, so overall, that's basically my introduction to the meta. After this, I am going to go to my card review. I'll start with the neutrals, and then I will go classes, and I will group them up. Okay, I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.